Haliburton method, also called inner string grouting or pressure grouting, is where when we want to have a blank casing with cement on the outside, and maybe we'll drill out from under beneath that. So I call them intermediate casings, you know. And so if we want to do that, then we can drill a larger borehole where we can install a trimmy pipe in the annulus, pump cement, and bring it back up. That's not the Haliburton method. The Haliburton method would be if we want to install that same casing with what's called a float shoe at the bottom. And a float shoe is a drillable check valve. So it's got a little ball valve in it. And so they can install their casing with this float shoe, fill the casing with drilling mud or water, install their drill pipe to the bottom of it and sting into it. In other words, couple into that float valve. And they can circulate drilling mud or water on the outside so they know that they have an open path. Once that's done, then they can pump the cement through the float valve and from the bottom up, displace the mud and cement the well. It's a good method because that bottom up flow path of the cement is really going to go push it into every crevice and be a good tight job. And you don't need to have the width of an annulus to accommodate a trimmy pipe, which is usually around 2 or more inches. Well, that's good, and it should be done in many times. And in my book, I mentioned about how you can do a buoyancy calculation to know if you're going to float the casing. That's the time when a casing can float. If you have a casing, even filled with water, that's sitting in a hole that's filled with liquid cement at a moment in time, it's possible for it to float. And I've seen that happen, and a lot of drillers are aware of that. But in the book, I describe how you can know if it's going to happen or not ahead of time, you know. And so that's all the good part of it. The crutch can be that I know that in some states they've embraced regulations where the annulus only needs to be a very thin annulus, you know, outside the casing. And that's, you know, so that they can use the Haliburton method and get cement in place and have to, you know, be allowed regulatorily to drill a smaller hole. That's all fine, but it's not the best thing because in the real world, what if your borehole is half a degree off? And what if your casing is laying to one side and you have cement on 3 sides but not 4 sides? You know, that can happen. And so you have to have a well-centered casing. You have to have a good annular seal. And so those things, you know, are there. It's a good practice, but it's not for every well, not for every job. And so I'm not in favor of having it be a whole state regulation is allowed to always do it. It's not very few things you always do. There's a few, but not that. It's Haliburton cementing is not one of them. And but it's great in many aspects and in many occasions, and I've done it a lot of times. It's something that the water well industry has borrowed from the oil and gas industry, and it's a good one.